Welcome back to the channel. It's another ridiculously cold night in western Pennsylvania, and I decided to get out here and try to get some framing done this evening. While nobody was looking, I went and got the other beam put up, and I reinforced this wall. Just put another 2x4 in here, and then I put this plywood on here. And just as a reminder, the reason I'm putting the plywood on is whenever you build a house or a structure, you put that OSB sheathing on it, and then that just keeps everything from racking back and forth and makes it really solid. And I want to do the same thing here. I want to make sure that when I build this structure, I don't want anything leaning against the walls. I've gotten some comments about people saying, well, why don't you just anchor everything to the walls? Well, everything in this building has a specific load that it's designed for. So the last thing I want to do is start going and hanging stuff off from the ceiling and putting a lot of weight on the walls. For those of you that are newer to the channel, I am pretty particular about things, so I don't want to just go spray foam everything and go paint it, paint this styrofoam, or, a lot of suggestions that I've had where I've seen a lot of people do that, and that's fine. The one issue is my wife and I's house is pretty small. It's an old farmhouse that we've redone, and it's really nice, but it's small. So one of the things we want to do with this building is, have kids' birthday parties and, parties that we have for family and different things like that. So I want to drywall it and make it really nice. I'm still going to have my tools in here, keep it really clean, but that's why I'm being so particular about it, is because really we're kind of trying to make this another portion of our house. So what I'm going to try to get done is I want to get a header across that door. And for those of you that watched the video, the video of it being set up, the door is actually still broken. They haven't come back to replace it. So if you do have them set up a building and something's wrong, it might take a little while for them to get back, because they just kind of make a schedule of everywhere they want to hit. They'll go everywhere from, Florida, work their way up North Carolina, clear up into Pennsylvania, over to Indiana, just kind of work their way around. So by the time they make it back to you, it might be months, and that's kind of what we're dealing with. And one thing that we thought about, we're going to try it, we'll see if it works. We're going to see if they'll just refund us the money for the door, and then I'm going to go ahead and have a regular roll-up door put in, because those doors are pretty cheap, and eventually I would like to have an automatic opener. And the other thing that I want to get done in this video is I want to get the ceilings put on this side of the building and get a ceiling in where the air compressor goes in that little room, and then the little office here. I want to get a ceiling in here. If you don't mind commenting, one of the things I was considering is not insulating where my air compressor goes. One of the reasons is just so it has enough airflow to draw in. I do not want to listen to that compressor all day when I'm in here. If I'm working on a car or something like that. Actually, in my old building, it's actually in the room next door, and I just ran the hose over and ran a power source over to it with a switch that I can sit there and flip on and off in the garage, because I don't want to listen to it. So if you don't mind, maybe put in the comments whether I should insulate it or not. I was thinking about maybe even just leaving it open, putting the insulation in, and still putting a vapor barrier and everything on this side like I regularly would, but just leave this as studs and just make it so there's plenty of airflow in here. And around the edges, they're actually kind of open. When they put on the trim, it's really just your corrugated metal, and then there's just a cap that goes over it. So you've got all kinds of airflow in here. And it's the same thing with the ceiling. When I go to insulate the ceiling, it's kind of the same thing. They've got all those little holes where the corrugation's at, so you'll have plenty of airflow through here. So if you don't mind, maybe just tell me what you think as far as maybe insulating that and finishing it, or just leaving it open. I'm leaning more towards just leaving it open. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by building a small wall down from this beam. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to make sure there's a good solid connection with these beams. I don't want to just throw some nails or something up in there. I want to actually make sure I get a really good connection, and then I want to make sure that this ceiling here is not as steep, because we had some steep ceilings in our house, and I tried to finish them there, finish the corners, and I'm pretty particular and I'm pretty good at drywall, and I could not get those things to look right. It kind of ticked me off. So I think what I'm gonna do is just put a gentler sloping ceiling here, but then at the same time, I wanna put that small wall in there to connect the walls really well and then make a strong connection with that beam going across. Okay, remember when I framed the walls, I did 16 inches on center. Since these are ceilings, there's not gonna be a lot of structural weight, anything pushing down on them. I'm gonna make them 24 inches on center. So it's the same principle here. You'll just put one at the end, come over to 24, put an X ahead, 48, and so on. So just a quick reminder, when you're building walls, if you're not using your typical, 8-foot studs or, like your pre-cut studs in the store, I think they're 92 and 5/8 inches. Then remember, like on this wall, I want this little wall that I'm building to be 15 inches tall. So I need to take into account the 1.5 inches for the top plate, and 1.5 inches for the bottom. So 15 minus the 3. The little studs we're gonna put in here are gonna be 12 inches tall. Okay, I have this little filler piece built, and what I'm gonna do is measure down. This wall's 15 inches, so I'm gonna measure down about 15.5, nail a board on there, then that'll help me hold this in place. Okay, now I'm gonna put a piece of OSB on the back side of it to keep it from racking back and forth. These pieces of plywood that I put on these walls made this whole structure pretty stiff. So I have 1, 2 of those little walls, and then this wall. So with it going back and forth, it's definitely gonna have, with these in place, it's definitely gonna keep it from going back and forth this way. And after I put these on here, that'll stiffen that up. And I'm gonna do the same thing in these spots as well. So I was at work today and had a few minutes. So just for the heck of it, I was trying to figure out how much it would have costed in OSB, only the OSB, to sheathe this if I was to stick build it. So when I figured it out, it was about $2,315 without tax. So, you know, just a few sheets of plywood is, I think, a lot better. So I paid about $9,100 for this building installed, and that came with the doors and the garage door and everything, and then somebody else set it up. So $2,315 before tax is more than a quarter of what I paid for the actual building. Okay, I'm gonna put a board here in the back, and that's what all my small little roof joists will hook into. Okay, so for the ceiling, I have my backboard on here, and right up here I measured up 3.5 inches, came across, and the difference here was 7.25 inches, so I needed a 14-degree angle to get my board to fit. So you can see it fits pretty well, but I don't actually want it there. I actually want it somewhere closer to there, because I want the drywall to come over and catch this edge here. And so there'll be a little bit of a gap here in the back once I get this in place. This one will just get nailed to the wall. Then I'm going to leave a space, and then the space between 24 inches on center is 22.5 inches. So I'm going to measure over 22.5 inches, make a mark, come over 1.5 inches. Then I'm going to nail another board on here. It's 22.5 inches long. Then I'll connect either board to either side. I'm going to do the same thing up on this face as well. And all that's going to do is just give me a really solid connection. I'll be able to actually nail into a board instead of trying to toe nail into here or something. Okay, there's one ceiling down. I don't know if you can kind of see the slope of it. It's not too steep. Then, like I said, these little corners that kind of jog out, they'll just sit there and the drywall will come right up to the edge. So I'll be able to actually put a drywall screw in the edge, and then when I bring the other sheet down, I'll be able to make that corner. For the ceiling in the office, I'm just gonna cut some boards and just nail them across to the walls at about 8 feet. It'll be just under 8 feet, so it'll still be a pretty tall ceiling in here. So I'll put one against the wall on either side, and then I'll just nail them into these studs. And with them being 16 inches on center, I think I'll be fine just nailing them right into the side of the stud. Okay, so I'm just gonna put marks on the back wall, then I'll transfer a mark over to this wall, and then make marks on this side, and then I'll just set my boards up and just nail them in. So this board here was pretty straight, I thought, when I bought it from Lowe's, but for some reason now it's super crooked. And whenever you're doing things like this, just putting up small ceilings or, you know, where you just need some sort of blocking or something small, definitely look for boards like that that somehow snuck in, and cut those up into these smaller sections and use these for, you know, spans that are only going to be 3-4 feet long. So I need these pieces to be about 4 feet. Since they're not going in between anything, they're just going to be nailed to the sides of the studs. It's okay if they're just a little bit off. So since this is a 12-foot board, I just marked the 4-foot line and the 8-foot line. And you want to be careful when you're doing that, because if you ever try to say take a 12-foot board and make it, you know, into, you know, equal pieces, whether you want 3-foot pieces, 4-foot pieces, whatever, not all going to be the same length, because your saw blade is about 1/8 of an inch wide, and so that takes that much of the board off. The last thing I want to do in this video is finish the frame up around this door. Okay, so for your doors, maybe even for something as small as this, maybe some people disagree with me, but I would probably still frame this out like I would a small door. This little piece in here is going to get cut out, and just like in the office over there, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to get cut out as well, but you put that on the bottom just to keep everything square just while you're building it. With a door this small, I probably would have done the same thing, just frame out, you know, just put a piece of pressure treated 2x4 on the bottom, and then go ahead and put my header and everything up and build it just like a, kind of like a normal door. It's just your header's a lot bigger. So I'm not going to do it that way because I'm only one person and I don't really want to lift it. And the other disadvantage I have is the door is already installed. If it wasn't installed, I'd probably just frame it all out here on the floor and then lift it up into place. But now I got to work around the door. So I'm going to frame up these little walls, and they're just going to be kind of sitting here separately out here on the floor. There's going to be 2 full-length studs, and then there's going to be 3 smaller studs that are going to hold the beam in place on either side. Okay, I have my walls laid out. All I need to do now is get them nailed together, and this space here is where my beam is going to sit. Okay, I have my header cut out here, just 2x8, and it'll just sit right on top of those 3 studs on either side. I don't really care so much about the strength. If you were going to span this across and say it wasn't a gable end, meaning it has like the end that comes to the pitch, say, you know, you had it going across and your trusses were coming down and laying across there, this header would have to be substantially bigger to hold the snow load, the shingles and everything. This is just mainly being here just to tie these walls together, and then of course to have a header that won't let any of the roof or anything sag when I put the little wall across, and then put the 2x4 across on the top where the drywall is going to attach to. I'm still putting the plywood on here though, even though I don't really care as much about, I'm not as concerned as much about the strength, but the 2x4s are 3.5 inches wide, and each one of those 2x8s are actually 1.5 inches wide, and this 7/16 inch OSB gives it that extra almost 1/2 inch, so it's about as wide as the studs. So I have a little bit of a problem with the header. this was gonna work really nicely. You just go right above this bracket. I don't know if you can see it, because the opening of the door is actually down a little ways. So I wanted to make sure that I had a header pretty close for when I one day get a different type of door. Of course, that doesn't look like it's gonna work out now. So until I get a new one, I'm gonna have to put this header up a little bit further. I just stuck a couple nails in here. This isn't gonna be permanent now, but I'm gonna throw that header on here just to kind of tie everything together. And then I'll finish some of this other stuff here, get some joists across. Then after I get some joists across, I don't know, maybe take this back down and see if I can either do something else, see if maybe they'll let me move this out another, you know, maybe when they come back to replace the door, maybe see if I can bring this out a little bit further. That might, because I guess I should have explained what the issue is as this rolls up, it gets bigger and bigger, and then it actually ends up, it'll end up hitting the header. So I need to see if maybe I can do something about that. But as I said, I want the header here for where the opening is going to be in the future. So I don't know, I have to work that out. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this header installed. If I end up dropping it, you'll never know it, because I ain't gonna put it on YouTube, because I don't want to be one of the people on Fail Army. Okay, so of course, 2 blocks wasn't enough, so I had to actually install another one. But the way this is supposed to work, that beam was supposed to sit, or that header was supposed to sit right on these triple studs here. Then I would nail it into the side, into this other wall, and then I'd put a 2x4 across, and as it's laying flat, you know that it won't bend really well this way. So then that'll keep that header pretty straight. And then I was gonna tie in the other top plate across to give it that double header. And I was gonna have a solid connection all throughout. And then I was just gonna build a small wall on top, which would match these headers up here. I guess these ones would be beams. That would match these beams. And then, I don't know, all would be right with the world, but apparently the roll-up door isn't cooperating. Okay, so last thing I got to do is put these anchors into this wall. And somebody commented that I hadn't shown how to do this, and I think they were right. I think I showed you had to put the tap cons in the bottom. I found these in my garage, so I'm going to use these. How you do this is you use a masonry bit, the size specified for the anchor. So these are 1/2 inch, so use a 1/2 inch drill bit. You'll drill down through the wood into the concrete. I have some tape on here so I know how deep to go. You'll clean out the hole really well, try to get all that dust and stuff out of there. And then you'll just gently tap this in until it comes up to the washer. And then you'll just crank this down. There's actually a torque setting, I think it's 20 foot-pounds that you put on here. How I do it is I just kind of go till the wood starts to deform a little bit. You don't really want to crank down hard on these. You don't want to wreck the anchor or anything. If you get this bolt in here and it just wants to spin, get a pry bar underneath it, and that'll put a little bit of pressure against the bolt, and then you can start turning the nut and tighten it down. Okay, that's all for this video. I'm gonna go inside and get warm. hopefully in the next few days it's supposed to warm up and I'll be able to knock out a lot more of this stuff, get these other beams on the other side made. And I'm actually gonna put another 2x6 on these beams, kind of beef them up just a little bit more, because when I was looking at the chart, I had to use 2x10s going across. I was hoping I could get away with 2x8s for the joist going across, but I won't be able to do that. So I think I'm gonna beef them up just a little bit more and finish getting all this stuff framed, and then I'll be on to the electrical. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to get a lot more knocked out. It's been kind of cold around here, so I haven't been super eager to get out and get busy. But please like and subscribe, and also share this video if you think there's anybody that could use this information. Thanks.